Since the release of The Elder Scrolls 3, Project Tamriel Rebuilt have been adding the Morrowind mainland as well as the other provinces of Tamriel into the game as fully playable areas, giving us hundreds of hours of new content. But what does it mean to rebuild Tamriel? Does the team aim to complete vanilla, surpass it, or even replace it? How do they approach areas seen in the other Elder Scrolls games? And at what point could Project Tamriel Rebuilt actually be considered finished? Today we will take a closer look at all the details. This is the lore and design philosophy of Project Tamriel Rebuilt. As always, there are timestamps and subtitles available. If you've only ever played Oblivion or Skyrim, you might be surprised to learn that the lore of the series is not one cohesive whole. In fact, it seems to undergo a soft reboot with each mainline entry, with some fairly significant changes. The most obvious one is the scale and scope of the provinces, but these are mostly caused by the limitations of the game engine. However, there are also numerous reinterpretations and flat-out contradictions through which the latter games effectively change the earlier continuity. To put it plainly, the worlds of Skyrim and Oblivion are completely different from the world of Morrowind, which in turn was a radical departure from Daggerfall. Project Tamriel Rebuilt, being a mod for The Elder Scrolls 3, follows that game's scope and lore, which many would argue is by far the most interesting and intricate form of the lore. Full of alien cultures and original ideas, it is unapologetically esoteric and weird, and the world building of The Elder Scrolls 3 is regarded as one of the best in the history of video games. Therefore, instead of continually adapting to the moving target that is the new lore, Project Tamriel Rebuilt choose to treat as canon only the work of the creative team which developed The Elder Scrolls 3. This includes not just that particular game, but also spin-off games released before and after The Elder Scrolls 3, as well as the developers' forum posts, interviews, or development screenshots. Of course, these don't provide nearly enough information for Project Tamriel Rebuilt to fully recreate the entire empire, so there are many elements which the teams have to come up with by themselves. All new contributions to the lore must 1. Not contradict this classic lore of the Elder Scrolls, and 2. Be interesting and inventive in the spirit of the original game. Let's take a look at some specific differences. Skyrim is not filled to the brim with Dwemer ruins. These can only be found in the eastern Velothi mountains, whereas the western ruins were built and abandoned by the Direni elven ancestors. They are also not full of the Falmer, who are a mysterious, long-dead race and therefore not included as antagonists. Rather than Talos, the Nords worship their totemic old gods, and they do so in the privacy of their homes, not a formally established temple. The legendary Thu'um, or the Way of the Voice, is not preserved and taught solely by the Greybeards. It is also a skill honed at the newly founded College of the Voice. Cyrodiil, meanwhile, is for the most part a large jungle. The people of the Imperial Province do worship the 9 divines, but they also privately revere innumerable saints and spirits. There is a vast division between the two major Imperial cultures. The extravagant, esoteric Nibbanese, who place their trust in all manner of deities and philosophies, are nothing like the moderate, steadfast Colovians, for whom the gods are heroes to be emulated. Necromancy is legal and mostly accepted. The Blades are the Imperial Secret Service, not the Emperor's private army. There are many kinds of dragons, some of which have not gone extinct. A subtler shift is also visible in the kinds of stories told by the Elder Scrolls games. Starting with Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls games have de-emphasized politics and religion in favor of epic struggles. Their focus is on individual characters, either paupers or princes. Tamriel Rebuilt, in contrast, focuses on the middle managers and the macro politics. While we build and rebuild various parts of Tamriel, we want to capture that same alien feeling established on Vardenfell, the same political development, the same internal coherency, the same feeling of history. At the same time, we want to bring new, non-derivative, interesting locales, people, and events into the game. Knowing the basis for the lore, we can now look at Project Tamriel Rebuilt as a playable mod. The areas added by Project Tamriel Rebuilt are meant to fit in seamlessly with vanilla content as well as with each other, offering a vanilla-like amount of characters to meet, factions to join, and quests to complete. The goal of the project is for all the content to be at least as good as vanilla, or better while still following the design sensibilities of the original game, so as not to break immersion and a sense of consistency. This guiding principle is followed in all aspects of the game: asset quality, level design, quest writing, NPC design, etc. Let's take a look at what this means. The mods use assets from the original game, but when appropriate they also add new objects and creatures, complete with their own animations and sounds. For example, the architecture of Cyrodiil is vastly different from anything found in Morrowind, and players traveling through the Imperial Province may come across horses or be forced to defend themselves against minotaurs. Several new spell effects are also added, but because of technical limitations, these are only available through the Morrowind script extender. If the mod is played through the current versions of the community-developed engine replacer Open Morrowind, they are substituted by appropriate vanilla effects. However, Open Morrowind developers are hoping to eventually reach full parity with Morrowind script extender, so this difference will eventually cease to exist. Similarly to Morrowind, cities are of a believable size and inhabited by hundreds or even thousands of characters. This is of course achievable because NPCs in the engine of The Elder Scrolls 3 are static and don't simulate daily routines like in the latter games. Most NPCs can comment on various topics, helping the player learn about the local region, its inhabitants, and factions. Project Tamriel Rebuilt extends the factions present in the vanilla game, and where appropriate, adds new ones. Some of these factions are only flavor factions, meaning the player cannot join them, but can usually perform 1 or 2 tasks for them. However, there are also many joinable factions, which offer an original questline. In most regions, these include the major imperial guilds, prominent local religions, ruling political powers, their associated militaries, other institutions and organizations, and vampire clans. Focusing now on the province of Morrowind, the newly added lands offer hundreds of quests, both faction quests as well as miscellaneous quests. While many of them are similar in style to the vanilla quests, others may be less typical and include branching choices or dialogue checks. This reflects the shift in design philosophy inevitable for a project of this age. The evolution of the design philosophy is fascinating in itself, so let me say a few words about it as well. While today Project Tamriel Rebuilt adheres to vanilla standards, this hasn't always been the case. Throughout Tamriel Rebuilt's long history, there have been several attempts to establish a new standard, departing from vanilla sensibilities. In the earliest years of the project, the trend was to include mods which completely transformed the way NPCs looked. In the late 2000s and 2010s, exterior and interior designers prioritized impressive visuals over performance and ease of development. In the mid-2010s, quests were expected to be highly complex, branching narratives, which were difficult to develop and led to numerous delays, among other issues. In the end, Tamriel Rebuilt has always decided to adhere to the vanilla standard rather than chase fashionable trends, and today this philosophy is espoused by all the teams under the Project Tamriel Rebuilt umbrella. The addition of such an enormous amount of content into the game necessarily raises 2 important considerations: how, if at all, it will interact with vanilla content, and how it will affect character progression during the average playthrough. In terms of physical space, the landmass of the province of Morrowind is included seamlessly. The player can see the mainland from Vardenfell and can traverse the sea to go there and back. For the other released regions, which are not yet physically connected to Morrowind, the player currently must use fast travel, but once these regions are connected, the player will be able to walk from Vardenfell all the way to these remote provinces. To ensure a seamless connection, Vardenfell has been altered in small, non-intrusive ways. For example, several new NPCs have been added, one to each of a handful of major locations, who can take you to the mainland. Several lines of dialogue have also been altered to direct the player to the mainland in a natural, immersive way. Another key aspect are the factions. In the past, Tamriel Rebuilt opted for the complete separation of Vardenfell factions from their mainland counterparts. There was the Vardenfell Mages Guild and the Mainland Mages Guild, the two being completely independent of each other. Since 2017, however, factions are better integrated, and by joining a chapter of the guild, you are recognized as a member by all the other chapters across regions and provinces. Larger adjustments are reserved for the optional plugin TR Factions, which aims to better integrate factions in two ways. Firstly, by slowing down progression to reflect the added quests, meaning that the player must complete various mainland as well as vanilla quests to rise in the ranks. This encourages the player to explore the entire province and extends the average playthrough. Secondly, Tamriel Rebuilt seeks to integrate the mainland Great Houses into the Hortator main quest, and mainland Ashlander tribes into the Nerevarine main quest. The prophecy, which these quests are based on, says that the hero must be chosen by 3 Great Houses and 4 Ashlander tribes. Since the mainland is inhabited by 2 Great Houses and 4 Ashlander tribes not included in vanilla, the player will be able to choose which of these factions to align with, giving the main quest more variety and replayability in full accordance with the lore. The mainland council members of the 3 vanilla houses will also be incorporated into the story. Currently, the only Great House integrated by the TR Factions plugin are the Telvanni, as they are the only ones whose councillors have all been added. When the entire province is complete, Tamriel Rebuilt hope to write a unified questline to include all the relevant actors in a seamless way. The 2 areas added by Morrowind's official expansions pose another issue. Tribunal added a small portion of Almalexia, the capital of Morrowind. In the 2010s, the Tamriel Rebuilt team made 2 separate attempts to build the city around the strangely designed official area, but failed. It has therefore been decided that the city would be remade entirely from scratch, and Tribunal quests and NPCs would be copied over to the new layout to be included alongside quests created by the Tamriel Rebuilt team. Work on Almalexia is expected to start in the coming years. Meanwhile, the island of Solstheim, on which the Blood Moon expansion is set, is positioned in a way which contradicts established lore and overlaps the location of the important mainland city of Blacklight. The Tamriel Rebuilt team will therefore have to move the island, possibly by requiring another mod developed by many PTR developers, making other mods which alter the island incompatible with Tamriel Rebuilt unless they come with a compatibility patch. However, this will not happen for at least several years, since due to its position, the city of Blacklight will likely be the last area added by Tamriel Rebuilt. Finally, there is the Siege of Firemoth, an official plugin which Bethesda released to showcase the construction set. Since the plugin suffered from quality issues and conflicted with Tamriel Rebuilt's landmass, the team made the rare decision to overhaul the entire plugin, improving it and adding more content while retaining the original premise. This change now ships with the mod by default, but can be reverted using a special separate plugin. One of the most impressive features of Project Tamriel Rebuilt is their track record of content-rich releases. Rather than wait for an entire province to be completed before releasing it, the team is gradually publishing regions as they are finished. As I detail in my History of Project Tamriel Rebuilt video, this has led to many major releases, in particular during the recent years. However, this method carries the risk of the individual regions feeling disjointed and isolated. To prevent this, the team is making sure to always integrate the new expansion with previously added content through quests. The project wiki also contains a list of loose ends, which serves as a reminder of things to include in future expansions. This list also takes into account vanilla loose ends. For example, there is an NPC in Seydanin who supposedly travels to Narcissus. Tamriel Rebuilt players who complete his vanilla quest can then find him on the mainland as he makes his way to the city. Apart from new releases, the developers also make an effort to continuously update existing content to fit the current quality standards. This is the most obvious in the case of Morrowind, which includes some of the oldest Elder Scrolls III content still played today. While overhauling old areas is certainly controversial since it takes away time from working on new releases, it is an essential process to ensure the entire landmass feels cohesive and polished. Overhauls are released slowly in between new content, and as of 2025, several regions are planned to be overhauled in the coming years. This means that the goal of finishing Tamriel Rebuilt is an elusive one. Any area could always be improved, and so it falls on the developers to decide which ones are up to their standard. Currently, the team is focused on adding new areas, as well as fixing the most obvious issues of the existing ones. So, if you want to play the mod for the first time, my recommendation would be to check the release map and start your adventures in the newest areas, which are, generally speaking, in the best state. However, I want to emphasize that even as it currently stands, the entire released landmass of Tamriel Rebuilt is playable and full of enjoyable content. The formula used by Project Tamriel Rebuilt today has been refined by 24 years of modding experience. Though some decisions may be controversial, there is no denying the great success of the project's tremendous undertaking. The team is working on several upcoming releases and always looking for new volunteers. So if you want to help build the rest of Tamriel, check the link in the description. Want to see more content like this? Subscribe and let me know what I should focus on next. I'm Civi Bless.